Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the second chapter, and the name of the chapter is the market forces of the demand and supply. This is the overview of the chapter comprising of the market demand curve, market supply curve, market equilibrium representing the both demand and supply simultaneously, price restrictions which are being offered, which are being imposed by the government in the form of the price controls or some types of the taxation, and the comparative statistics. Comparative statistics means what will be the impact of the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity if one of the forces of the demand and supply is going to change. So coming towards the market demand curve, before giving you the detail of the market demand curve, first of all I would like to give you some concept regarding the demand. Demand is actually the quantity demanded, and by the quantity demanded we mean that if we have willingness to buy and the ability to buy of a thing, then that is termed as a quantity demand. Willingness to buy means that we like that good and we want to purchase it, and the ability to buy means that we should have money for that. If we have got both of those things, then it represents the demand. If one thing is only present, that doesn't represent the demand. So from the demand we have got the law of demand. The law of demand states that by keeping all the other things constant, there exists a negative relationship between the price and the quantity. The concept which is termed as by keeping the other things constant, it means we are taking the use of certain assumptions. When we make the assumptions, it means we are going to keep certain things constant. By constant means, for example, the different assumptions which I am going to take within this scenario of the law of the demand are like these. The assumption which I am taking is that the income, price of related goods, advertising and the consumer taste, population and the consumer expectations are not going to change. If this is the scenario, then the relationship between price and the quantity is negative. Then we have got this negatively sloped demand curve. It means law of demand doesn't exist in the absence of assumption. It always exists in the presence of the assumption. It shows the amount of the good that will be purchased at the alternative prices. It means at different prices by holding other factors constant. So the other factors constant are these: the income, prices of related goods, advertisement and the consumer taste, population along with the consumer expectations. These are also the assumptions, and this is also termed as the determinants of the demand. Now, what do you mean by the income? Income is that the monetary income which we have, and how the income is going to affect the demand. It depends on the basis of this. The goods are being divided into two to three categories. Only two goods are mentioned over there, but there are three types of the categories on which we can divide the goods on the basis of the income. The first one is the normal good. So what do you mean by the normal good? A normal good are all those goods in which whenever our income increases, we are going to purchase more of that good. For example, if our income is increased, we are going to purchase more of the meat, then meat is a normal good. If we have more income, we are going to purchase more of the gold, then gold is a normal good. If we have got more income, we are going to purchase more of chicken, then chicken is a normal good. So by the normal good means that whenever we have got more income, we are going to purchase more of that good. This is the normal good. The other one is the inferior good. Now, what do you mean by the inferior good? Inferior good means that whenever we have got more income, we are going to purchase less of that good. In case of the normal good, we have purchased more of it, and in case of the inferior good, we have purchased less of it. For example, if we have more income, we have purchased less of the chicken and purchased more of the meat, then chicken will be the inferior good. If we have more income, we have stopped traveling by bus and we have increased our travel by our own car, then the traveling by bus is the inferior good. So in case of the normal good, the direction is the positive. It means your income is increasing, your more of that good is being purchased. In case of the inferior goods, the direction is inverse. If your income is increased, the less of that good will be purchased. And the third one, which is not mentioned over here, are the giffen goods. Giffen. Giffen goods are those goods. More you have got the income, that the purchase of that good remains the same. Less of income you have, the purchase of that good remains the same. For example, it is the salt. These are the species like black pepper it could be the sugar. So whenever your income increases, you increases the purchase of that good, that represents the normal good. Whenever your income increases, you purchase less of that good, these are the inferior. And whenever your income increases, you purchases the same amount of that good, those are goods are the given goods. Prices of related goods. Now, what do you mean by the prices of related goods? Related goods can be divided into two categories. One are the substitutes, and other one are the complementary goods. Substitutes goods are those which have got the same function. For example, in case of the substitutes of soft drinks, Pepsi and Coke are the substitutes. Okay, and in case of the complementary goods are two goods which are to be used simultaneously, like that of the petrol and car, software and computers. These are the complementary goods. None of the good can be used independently. So there must be the combination of both of the goods which we can use together. For example, whiteboard and the marker. These are the substitutes. The third thing is the advertisements and the consumer taste. Advertisement means that these are the promotional campaigns which are being used by the firms in order to make the consumers aware of their product, in order to induce them to purchase their goods. And the consumer taste. How much we like that of good? The more we like that of good, more we are going to purchase that. The less we like that of good, less we are going to purchase that. Population. The number of the buyers which are in that area, how they are going to affect the purchase of a good. And the consumer expectations. Now the consumer expectations is how we are going to expect that if the price of a good changes, how we are going to behave accordingly. Do we have to purchase it more now, or do we have to purchase it afterwards? So these are basically the definitions of all the concepts which are being called as the determinants of the demand. Now, as far as the relationship of all these things towards that of the price or the demand of a certain product is considered, that there's a difference in the behavior of all these things. For example, if the price of substitutes, in case of the price of the substitutes, if we take the example of the Pepsi and Coke, if the price of the Pepsi has been increased, then according to the law of demand, the demand of the Pepsi will be decreased and demand of the Coke will also increase. Now, in case of the price of the complementary goods, if the price of the cars has been increased, it means the demand of the petrol will have been decreased. More the advertisement you have, more will be the demand of your product. More the consumers has the taste of your product, more the purchase of your good. More the number of buyers in your area, more will be the purchase of the good. And if the consumer expectations are positive, it means if the consumer expecting that in the near future you are going to offer them a sale, then they are not going to buy your product today, they are going to buy your product after the sale. If the consumer expect that in the coming time period the price of your product is going to increase, then they will purchase it today and not afterwards. On the basis of all these concepts, we are going to derive the demand function. General demand function represents the relationship between the quantity of a product, that is your product X, and all the other determinants which we have discussed within the last slide. Where the QDX is the quantity of the good X, PX is the price of the good X, PY is the price of the related good, it could be the complementary good, it could be the substitutes, M is the income. Now, your income is relevant towards the purchase of that good. It depends upon how you perceive this good. It could be a normal, it could be an inferior, and H could be any other variable. H means it could be dated with the advertisement, it could be taste, it could be season, it could be anything. Now, in case of the demand function, you can also see that demand function, in case of demand function, the quantity is always the function of the price. But you can also express it like the inverse demand function. Now, the inverse demand function would be like that. Then the price will become the function of the quantity. For example, the demand function is equal to the Qx is equal to 10 minus 2p, and the inverse demand function will be that we are going to take this 2p towards this area and Qx towards this, and this minus will be converted into the plus. It will become 2px is equal to 10 minus 2x, and we have to eliminate this 2 along with the px, and this is multiplicative. We have to divide it over here on this side of the equation and also over this side of the equation. Then it becomes px is equal to 5 minus 0.5 qx. We have converted this demand function into the inverse demand function. Both the functions are the same, but in this case, this is the quantity demand is the function of price. Here the price is the function of the quantity demand. So there are two concepts are being used, and this concept is being particularly used in the mathematical analysis, in which we use this price as a determinant of the total revenue, in which we measure it with the multiply it with the quantity and we get the total revenue function. So demand function is that in which the quantity is a function of price, and the inverse demand function is that in which the price is a function of quantity. Okay, as far as the demand curve is concerned, you can see that it is negatively sloped, and I have already stated there. In case of the any function, in case of the any curve, in economics, there are two types of movements. One type of movement represents a movement along the curve, another type of movement represents a movement of the curve. For example, if you are at point A and you move towards the point B, so this type of movement, as you move from the point A towards the point B, this type of movement represents the movement along the curve, as you have remained on the same curve. You have moved away from this curve. This type of movement represents the movement along the curve, and the reason of this movement along the curve is always your independent variable, and your independent variable in this case is the price. You can move from the point A to the point B to point C to point D, point E. Anyway, on the same curve, that type of movement would be called as the movement along the curve, and the reason of this type of movement will always be your independent variable, and your independent variable in this case is always the price. The second type of movement is the movement of the curve. Movement of the curve, when your curve is going to move away, it means the demand has been increased, or it has been moved inwards, it means the demand has been decreased. That type of movement is represented as the movement of the curve. For example, the demand curve is going to move out, it means the demand has been increased. It could be due to any other factor, but not this one. It is basically due to the determinants of the demand, which are your income, your taste, your consumer expectations, your populations, the prices of the related goods, and all the other things. If they have got effect in such a way that the demand has been increased, the demand curve is going to move out. This type of the movement represents the movement of the curve. Now, from the demand curve, we can also have the concept of the consumer surplus. Now, consumer surplus represents the welfare on the part of the consumer. It is basically the difference between the willingness to pay and the price you actually pay. Willingness to pay means that what you want to pay for that good, and the price you actually pay means what you have actually paid for it. For example, in case of in case of a car repair, you want to pay about 500 rupees, but at that time you are asked to pay 800 rupees. Your willingness to pay was 500 and what you actually paid was 800. Now the difference between these two is 300. It means that person have asked from you 300 more. It means your quality of life and your welfare has been reduced. So if your willingness to pay is less and the price you actually paid is more, then it means your welfare has been reduced. And if your willingness to pay is less and a willingness to pay something and you have paid actually less of that good, that means your welfare has been increased. For example, if you are willing to pay for a visit for a movie, for example, about 500 rupees, and what you have actually paid for it was about 300 rupees, it means the difference of the 200 is that with which your welfare has been increased. So the consumer surplus is basically the difference between two concepts. Number one is the willingness to pay, and number two, the price you actually pay. Now, the consumer surplus will prove particularly useful in marketing and other disciplines, emphasizing the strategies like the value pricing and the price discrimination. How we are going to elaborate these concepts, I will discuss in the next part of the same lecture.